Hi, welcome to Amber in the Kitchen. I wanted to get with you guys this week and make some pie. So I know it's a holiday and everybody's going to be busy cooking and baking and all sorts of things. So I thought I would help with some homemade pie crust and give you guys my tips and tricks on how to help keep that like a flaky crust instead of becoming dense. And I'm going to share with you guys an apple pie recipe and a pumpkin, and we'll see what our results are. I'm going to do two different forms or technique for pie crust, and we'll see which one turns out better. One is you grate frozen butter on a box grater, so it looks like white chocolate kernels almost, and you do that instead of cutting in the butter into the flour. So that's one technique. And then the other thing is just to remember when you're making pie dough from scratch to keep everything as cold as possible. I am not going to try to touch this with my hands. I'm going to try to just use tools and not heat anything up. So the other thing is really important when you're making pie crust is to use a shortening and a butter. And the reason for that is they have different melting points, and it will help encourage more flakiness, more layers as it bakes in the oven. So I have already pre-measured all of the ingredients. They're in the freezer or refrigerator. So I'm going to grab my first batch of things, and I'm going to be using my food processor to combine them. Okay, so let me get started. Okay, so I've got the flour, the sugar, and the salts pre-measured in a steel, my KitchenAid mixer bowl, and I put that into the freezer. So yes, it does make a difference if you refrigerate or freeze your dry ingredients as well. That's why pie crust calls for ice water and refrigerated cold butter and shortening. What I did was I went ahead and put my butter in the freezer and my shortening in the refrigerator, and then my dry ingredients in the freezer as well. Okay, let me shift you guys down here so you can see what's going on. Sorry, forgot that step. Whoops. All right, so here is our dry ingredients. This is the flour, the sugar, and the salt. And then I'm going to grab for you guys butter. This is the grated frozen butter. I'm going to go ahead and put that in slowly and carefully, but not too slowly. Don't want things to warm up. Okay, it's kind of sticking to my plate a bit, but that's okay. This is my first time doing this with a food processor, so hopefully that turns out well. But I've heard that it's more effective than the KitchenAid mixer for pie crust. So this is kind of my experiment. We'll see how it goes. If you don't have a food processor, you can do this with a couple forks. You can do this with a dough attachment or the paddle attachment on your KitchenAid mixer. Those will work as well. Just be careful that you don't over mix. That's the main thing, because as you over mix, you'll be kind of nulling the point or what we're trying to do with this cold shortening and butter to keep them in chunks a bit. All right, so there is our butter. I'm going to go ahead and kind of incorporate this into our flour real quick. Couple of pulls on that guy, and then I'm going to get our shortening. Put that in. This is Crisco. I got the brick instead of the tub, just so I didn't have to really measure it out so much. It was nice to just cut it with a knife. This is my Pampered Chef food processor, and it's struggling a little bit here. So here we go. Get that in some water in there and see how that goes. Okay, so here you can see I've got big chunks and I've got little chunks, and that's what we want. We want big chunks and we want little chunks, and we want this to just stay chunker. All right, so I have my pre-measured half cup of water with ice in it. So what you want to do is add, actually, I'm going to use my little tool here that I have. I'm going to add water in, where is it? Is that it? All right, we'll try it. Add our water slowly with this little dude. Hey, this is working. So again, the key is to keep everything as cold as possible. Not to add too much water, just enough till things start to get incorporated. I don't know how well y'all can see anything in there, but here we go. We're starting to get some cohesiveness happening. Alright, I think I'm going to take this out of the food processor for two reasons. One, not loving how this food processor is handling the pie crust, and two, you guys can't see anything. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this guy off in our KitchenAid mixer just for simple visuals. Okay, where's my, here we go. Getting a little frizzled here. Sorry guys. Okay. So again, we just want to make sure everything's staying cold, not getting over mixed. Okay, this is coming along nicely. I'm liking that I'm seeing lots of clumps. Okay. Water in. I think that's probably enough. So, lots of pea-sized clumps, that's what you want. And it's starting to come together. That's just what you want. So the fact that there's a little bit of flour kind of loose in there is fine, because we're going to form this into a disc and wrap it with saran wrap and put it back in the fridge for half an hour before you bake it, or roll it out rather. So I'm actually really happy with how this looks. Okay, so this is where I'm going to start touching it with my hand to wrap it with the saran wrap. Push everything off to the side. Break out the saran wrap. Okay. We want to kind of split our dough in half. Okay, so that's about half. Compress it. Flatten it a bit. Okay, perfect. So it should be a little bit of like crumbling around the edges. You don't want this to be like bread dough where you're stretching it out and like maneuvering it and stuff. But that's your disc. It's a little bit cracked there. That's fine. You're gonna work that out later when you roll it. Right now the thing is to keep the cold factor happening. You want to see little bumps of butter in here and shortening. This is great. getting popped in the fridge. We're gonna do our second half. So, I am doing an apple pie with this one, and I'll be doing the pumpkin pie with the next batch, where we did not use the box grater on the butter, we just have chunks. And we'll see how that ends up. And because pumpkin pie, you don't put the top pie crust on, it's just the bottom. We're gonna make some fun little cinnamon and sugar dessert type snacks with the extra crust. So that'll be fun. Make sure to hop on and check out those other videos to see how this crust turns out. Okay, all right, big clumps is good. That's what we want to see. Kind of smash it together. And the reason why we do the discs like this is so that it's easier to roll out for your pie. You could do one big disc. You don't have to break it up into two like this, but it makes your life a little easier when you can just have one disc roll out instead of two. All right, I'm gonna put you guys back down here. I'm gonna go grab the other refrigerated and frozen ingredients and get this going again. Okay. So, this guy and butter. Okay, so this is our flour, sugar, and salt mixture again. Okay, and then the butter I just cubed up and stuck it back in the freezer. I'm gonna dump that in. And we are going to dump our other shortening in. Okay. And then I will show you guys how to do this without the help of the food processor. So a good way is to use 2 knives or 2 forks. I prefer the knives over the forks because you're literally cutting in the shortening and the butter. Sorry about the loud noise, but it's gonna happen. This bowl has a little loop on it, a thumb loop, and that's just gonna vibrate and make noise. I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to do this in my KitchenAid bowl by hand with the knives because the KitchenAid has that little divot that comes up in the bottom of the bowl, and that could make it a little difficult for doing the cutting in. Okay. So we're aiming for pea-sized chunks of our shortening and butter. And now you know why the box grater is such a great, easy tool to help with that, because you don't have to worry about getting it overcut, and you don't have to worry about getting too big of chunks. It's really easy. You can almost just like stir it in. And if Crisco froze that hard like butter does, I think I might try using the Crisco on the box cutter as well. It's really a nice little trick to grate that frozen butter. And there are all butter, no Crisco, no shortening recipes out there for pie crust. Feel free to try them and use that box cutter method and see what happens. Let me know. I know America's Test Kitchen has an all butter recipe, and I believe they do the box cutter and the cubes like this, like in the same recipe. So those 2 different methods, kind of cool. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start adding our ice water now. You don't want ice in there, but you just want the cold water, and there's an ice cube right there. So, just try not to get the ice in. If it goes in, it's not the end of the world. Alright, start cleaning this mix up. Okay. The reason why I chose knives over forks is I feel like the butter just gets stuck in the fork. and then you just have like these big globs of butter stuck on your fork. I don't like it, so I prefer the knives. But you do have to do a little bit more work that way if you're not using the forks. Kind of like using a whisk to fold in your ingredients into a meringue or something. Like, you have more sharp things folding through, but I don't know. Okay, we are almost there. Okay, so we're getting kind of a shaggy dough look here. I might add a little bit more water and call it a day. Let me hold on to this guy and just do one knife for a minute. You can also use a pastry cutter for this. I don't own a pastry cutter, so it's not an option for me at home personally. But if you have a pastry cutter, by all means, use it. Actually, I don't even think this really needs much more water. Maybe just a splash. There's a little bit of extra. Oops, wrong measuring cup. Here we go. A little bit of flour down at the side. Alright guys, that's what you want your pie crust to look like. Big chunks of butter with a shaggy kind of looking dough. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this into a disc. Plastic wrap. Get half of this out. Sorry if it's not the best camera angle, guys. Okay, give it a good scrunch. Okay, yeah, so this has given us a lot bigger chunks of butter, and I'm interested to see what the difference will be in the cooking rollout of it all. Alright, here we go. Second disc. Alright, so guys, while I'm doing this, I'm going to start saying check us out on the next video. The apple pie will have the box grater version of the pie crust, and the pumpkin pie, I'm going to use this current recipe here with the bigger chunks, and we'll see what happens. I'm excited and I can't wait to see you guys there. So like, share, subscribe, and give us any tips if you have some for your own pie crust. If you guys make it from scratch on a regular basis or something and you got some cool tips, let us know. I love to learn new things too. All right, see you on the next video. Bye.